Gibbs is back. The secret sniper twist that changed NCIS forever. The sun was setting over Washington, D.C., painting the sky in shades of orange and crimson. Inside NCIS headquarters, the mood was anything but peaceful. Director Leon Vance had been gone for months. His murder had left a wound that refused to heal. Every hallway seemed quieter, every case felt heavier, and every member of the major case response team carried the same question. Had justice truly been served? Former CID Director Wayne Rogers sat in federal custody awaiting transfer to a secure facility. Officially, he was the man responsible for orchestrating the chain of events that led to Vance's death. Unofficially, everyone knew he was about to walk away. A deal had been struck, a deal that disgusted every agent in the building, a deal that made Timothy McGee want to punch a wall, a deal that left Nick Torres pacing like a caged animal, and a deal that caused Alden Parker to stare out his office window for hours. Wayne Rogers wasn't getting punished. He was getting rewarded. The government wanted information. Rogers had plenty of it. Enough to buy his freedom. Enough to escape justice. Enough to mock the memory of Leon Vance. And that's exactly what he did. Hours before his scheduled transfer, Rogers smiled as federal marshals escorted him through a secure parking structure. "Tell Parker something for me," he said. One of the marshals ignored him. Rogers continued, "Tell him this isn't over." The marshal remained silent. Rogers laughed. "His family, his friends, his precious NCIS team. I'll remember every one of them." His smile widened. "And they'll remember me." Those words would become his last. A sharp crack echoed through the structure. One shot, perfectly placed. Wayne Rogers collapsed instantly, dead before he hit the ground. Panic erupted. Marshals scrambled for cover. Agents rushed forward. Emergency teams arrived within minutes. But it didn't matter. The shooter was gone. No footprints, no shell casing, no camera footage, nothing. Only a single bullet, a single impossible shot, and one terrifying realization. Whoever fired it was a professional. Back at NCIS headquarters, news of Rogers' death spread like wildfire. McGee stared at the report, one shot from nearly a mile away. Torres looked impressed despite himself. "That's not professional." He shook his head. "That's legendary." Jessica Knight crossed her arms. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Nobody answered. Nobody had to. The name hung in the room, unspoken, almost sacred. Gibbs. Leroy Jethro Gibbs. The man who had disappeared into Alaska 5 years earlier. The man who walked away from NCIS. The man who never stopped being Gibbs. Parker entered the bullpen. Everyone looked at him. Nobody spoke. Finally, Torres broke the silence. "You hear about Rogers?" Parker nodded. "I heard." McGee studied him carefully. "You seem surprisingly calm." Parker smiled slightly. "Maybe because some problems solve themselves." The team exchanged glances. Something was different, something Parker wasn't saying. Thousands of miles away, waves crashed against the rugged coastline of Naktok Bay. A small cabin stood alone beneath the fading evening light. Inside, Leroy Jethro Gibbs sat quietly. A fishing rod rested against the wall. A half-finished boat occupied the center of the room. The peaceful life he had chosen surrounded him. Yet his eyes remained fixed on the radio. The news broadcast played softly. Former CID Director Wayne Rogers was killed earlier today by an unidentified sniper. Gibbs said nothing. He simply listened. Then he turned the radio off. Silence filled the cabin. For a long moment, he stared out the window, the same expression he'd worn during countless investigations. The same expression criminals feared. The same expression that meant Gibbs had already made up his mind. A phone vibrated on the table. One message appeared. Mission accomplished. Gibbs deleted it. Then he returned to work on his boat, as if nothing had happened. 3 days later, strange evidence began emerging. Not enough to prove anything, just enough to raise questions. A witness reported seeing an older man near the shooting location. Another described silver hair. Another mentioned piercing blue eyes. None of it was conclusive. yet every clue pointed in the same direction. Knight reviewed the reports. "This is ridiculous." McGee nodded. "Almost feels intentional." Torres smirked. "Like somebody wants us to know." Knight looked up. "You think Gibbs would leave clues?" Torres laughed. "No." "Then why are there clues?" Before anyone could answer, Parker walked in. "Because sometimes legends become bigger than facts." The room fell silent. Again. Parker knew something. Everyone could see it, but nobody could prove it. That night Parker sat alone at home. A knock sounded at his door. He froze. Nobody should have known he was there. Another knock followed. Parker opened the door. Standing outside was an older man wearing a weather jacket. For a moment neither spoke. Then Parker smiled. "Gibbs." Leroy Jethro Gibbs stepped inside. 5 years had passed, yet somehow nothing had changed. The same eyes, the same presence, the same quiet authority. Parker poured coffee. Gibbs accepted it. They sat across from each other. 2 generations of NCIS leadership. 2 men connected by loss. Neither mentioned Rogers. Neither had to. Finally, Parker spoke. "You didn't need to come." Gibbs shrugged. "Maybe. Alaska wasn't far enough away?" A faint smile appeared. "No?" The smile disappeared quickly. "So, Vance really gone?" It wasn't a question. Parker nodded. The pain returned instantly. "Yeah." Gibbs looked away. His jaw tightened. Leon Vance had been more than a colleague, more than a director, more than a friend. They had survived wars together, political attacks, internal betrayals, near-death experiences. And now Vance was gone. Forever. For the first time, Parker saw genuine grief in Gibbs's eyes. "I should have been here." "You couldn't know?" Gibbs stared into his coffee. Still. The room remained silent. Heavy, painful, real. Eventually Parker changed the subject. "How long you staying?" Gibbs stood. "Not long." "You always say that." Gibbs headed toward the door. Before leaving he paused. "Take care of the team." Parker nodded. "I will." Then Gibbs disappeared into the night, like a ghost. The following week, new threats emerged. Several former associates of Rogers began targeting NCIS personnel. Anonymous messages, suspicious surveillance, break-in attempts, nothing major. Yet enough to create concern. Enough to suggest someone wanted revenge. One evening, McGee discovered a threatening note attached to his car. Another arrived at Knight's apartment. Torres found someone following him. The danger was escalating. Then suddenly it stopped. Completely. Every threat vanished overnight. Every suspect disappeared. Every lead went cold. It was as if someone had quietly cleaned up the problem. Someone highly skilled. Someone operating in the shadows. Someone who knew exactly how dangerous former enemies could become. McGee eventually found a small envelope on his desk. No return address. Inside was a single handwritten note. Rule 51. "Sometimes you're wrong." McGee smiled. He recognized the handwriting instantly. Gibbs. Weeks passed. Officially, the Rogers case remained unsolved. Unofficially, nobody at NCIS wanted it solved. For the first time since Vance's death, the team felt peace, closure, justice, even if it existed outside legal boundaries. Especially if it existed outside legal boundaries. One evening, the team gathered at a small memorial dedicated to Vance. Flowers surrounded the monument. Photographs captured decades of service. McGee stood quietly. Knight wiped away tears. Torres remained unusually silent. Parker approached the memorial. He placed a small coin beside Vance's photograph. Then he stepped back. A breeze moved through the trees. For a moment, Parker thought he saw someone standing in the distance. Watching, waiting, a familiar figure. By the time he looked again, the figure was gone. Yet a strange feeling remained, as if someone had been there. Someone making sure everything was all right, someone protecting the team from afar, just like he always had. Months later, a young NCIS agent asked McGee a simple question. "Do you think Gibbs will ever come back?" McGee smiled. The answer wasn't easy, because Gibbs had never really left. His rules still guided investigations, his stories still inspired agents, his lessons still shaped decisions, his shadow still stretched across every corner of NCIS, and now, thanks to one impossible sniper shot, everyone remembered exactly who he was. McGee looked toward the bullpen, toward Parker, toward the future. Then he answered, "Some people leave." He paused. "And some people become part of the place forever." The young agent nodded. McGee smiled, because he knew the truth. Leroy Jethro Gibbs wasn't simply a former agent. He wasn't simply a retired team leader. He wasn't simply a legend. He was NCIS. And whether he lived in Alaska, Washington, or somewhere in between, that would never change. Somewhere far away, beneath the Alaskan stars, Gibbs stood outside his cabin. The ocean stretched endlessly before him. Peace surrounded him once more. His phone vibrated. A message appeared. "Everything's good here, Parker." Gibbs read it, then slipped the phone back into his pocket. A faint smile crossed his face. For years he had carried the weight of protecting others. Now the burden belonged to a new generation. Yet if they ever needed him, if darkness ever threatened his family again, if justice ever required one final shot, Leroy Jethro Gibbs would return. And next time, the entire world would know it. The legend wasn't gone. The legend was waiting. And after the sniper twist that changed NCIS forever, nobody would ever underestimate Gibbs again.